I'm in a community. People love us. They come in, they give us cakes. They talk to us about their kids, their dogs. It's just like you're such an impactful member of the community. They probably know you and know your team and the pharmacist better than their own family, kids. They probably see them more than their kids. And I was like, man, I want to do this. Maybe I could do something special, in this profession. It's tailoring to a community that I knew very well. A lot of them were immigrants. I was like, I can speak their language. I can talk to them. I can understand their culture. I know how my grandma is. I know how my dad is. I know I can take care of these guys. That's how it started.
Well, I love the San Gabriel Valley.
Welcome to the My SGV podcast.
So I grew up here and I still live in Alhambra.
I was raised in between Temple City and Alhambra.
Eventually resided in South San Gabriel.
Our mission is to capture and share the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley.
Monterey Park has pretty much been my whole life.
Well, I'm proud to say that I was born and raised in the San Gabriel Valley.
We believe our diversity is what makes the SGV great. And no matter where you are from, in the San Gabriel Valley, you will feel welcome. All right, SGVers, welcome back to another episode of the My SGV podcast. Thank you for tuning in. If you're new here, we bring you the stories of the people of the San Gabriel Valley. And if you are a returning listener, thank you for tuning in and spending this time with us. Doctor, is it okay if I call you doctor, or you prefer?
You can call me whatever you like.
Okay.
Ken is fine.
Okay. So, Ken, the interesting thing that you discovered this morning is that I have met all your siblings.
Exactly. I feel like this is a family affair. I'm the last of the three.
Well, not everybody has been on the show. I think just one of your sisters hasn't been on the show, but that was an interesting conversational piece this morning. So, but before we get into your show, I want to thank our sponsors, Paris Baguette, for bringing these delicious treats for our guests every week. If you haven't already, go check them out in the city of San Gabriel on Las Tunas and say hi to Jason for us. Today, we're honored to welcome a visionary in the pharmacy world, someone redefining what it means to deliver personalized healthcare. This guest is the CEO and co-founder of a fast-growing network of independent pharmacies that puts patient care at the center of everything. His journey started with a doctorate from USC's School of Pharmacy, followed by a residency in community pharmacy practice. Over the past 2 decades, he's built a deep expertise in retail, long-term care, infusion, and specialty services while growing a footprint that spans across California, Nevada, and Texas. He's also a dedicated educator, mentoring the next generation of pharmacy entrepreneurs at both USC and Western University. As a former president of the California Pharmacists Association and a current national VP with NCPA, his leadership has impacted both policy and practice on a national scale. He's known not just for his vision, but for his presence, personally showing up in communities to make sure every neighborhood pharmacy reflects the people it serves. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Ken Tai to the show. Doctor, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you. That's probably the best intro I've ever had. So I got to take notes from your writing expertise.
I want the guests to feel welcome, a chance to celebrate the things that you've done. And so, would you say that those things are accurate?
Well, it sounds great. So I'm gonna say yes.
Okay, awesome. Well, this show is about you and about the San Gabriel Valley. So let's start there. What's your connection to the San Gabriel Valley?
To be honest, I think it's everything about me has been about the San Gabriel Valley. So I came to this country when I was about 4 or 5 years old. And so all I know is the San Gabriel Valley. This, to me, as far as I'm concerned, is the United States. I went to school locally. As a matter of fact, went to San Gabriel High School. I ultimately didn't want to go far because I love this place, and went to UCLA for undergrad, and then went to SC Farm School, and ultimately built my business around this area. So honestly, never left. I mean, I've traveled all over the world, and I still feel this is the best place on earth.
Awesome. And you said immigrate. From where did your family come?
So I'm Chinese, and and of course my sister, so that we're Chichao, which is a certain dialect or a certain subgroup, ethnic group within the Chinese population. We grew up. Well, my family migrated from China over to Vietnam as entrepreneurs, and kind of did business there. And ultimately, during the war, we came here as refugees, and so. As far as I'm concerned, we came here with nothing, And so that's why I think there's a extra different level of drive and sort of extra different level of push that we have to make sure that we make it worthwhile. My dad, I always remember this when he came here. He would say that, hey, I'm just going to be honest with you. We came here with nothing but a suitcase. But the crazy thing is that suitcase was empty. So it was an empty suitcase that we came with. And so whatever we leave with, we're already on top.
I was just going to ask you if that was like a positive message or one that was reinforced to make you feel bad, but it sounds like it was a positive one.
I take it as positive. I think it's, if anything else, has been a huge motivator. When I talk to a lot of folks, they're always asking me, hey, why do you work so hard, or why do you push so hard? I was like, I don't know, because I felt like I have nothing to lose. I felt like I came here with nothing. So if I leave with $1, a penny, then I'm already a winner, you know? So it just gives you a different mindset, a different motivation about, you know, how life is.
Do you have any memory of when you came here, when your family came here?
The interesting thing is, one of my first memories is actually, you know, the first day or first couple of days I was here, because believe it or not, I was technically put to work right after I got here. I remember as a little kid going out, and at the time my aunt, they, in order to survive, in order to be able to sponsor us, had to sell, work multiple jobs, and one of the things she did on the weekends was to sell clothing at the flea market. And so upon coming here, I remember that weekend I went to the flea market, and I thought that was like a vacation or something, you know. Oh my God, I could go here and look around and shop and things. I didn't know I was going to work and sell things and to put clothes up and put up tents and all those good things. So those are actually some of my earlier memories, believe it or not. And so, and the cool thing is when you're young, you don't know any different. You just think everything's fun. Everything is just a game.
Was that at Starlight over on Rosemead?
Believe it or not, that's one of them. There was Starlight, there's Azusa, there was the Rhodium out in, and there's Vineland, and it's all over. I mean, I've probably been to even the Rose Bowl. I've been to any flea market swap meet you can think of, because you would travel around different ones to see which ones are better. And yeah, it's funny because when I first, my parents were very excited that I learned how to drive at a very early age, and everyone's like, man, you're so lucky. Your parents, get you a permit and you immediately got to drive. I was like, yeah, because someone needed to drive that van to the swap meet. And so the minute I was able to drive, I was like, yes, you scored. Now you got another person to go out there and open another swap meet.
The story of so many immigrant families here is like, it's just expected that the family's going to pull their resources and work together to support the family. And it sounds like that's sort of was your own experience as well.
It is what it is. At the end of the day, I'm very grateful. I mean, maybe some people might look at it as though, man, that's tough. You're child labor, or man, you didn't get to go and play. You didn't have weekends of play dates or hangouts, and people are at home watching TV and hanging out and having fun, and going to parks. And your weekends were spent, quite honestly, doing work. Waking up 5, 6 in the morning. Sometimes it's freezing cold. It's raining. You're holding on to tents when it's being blown. I remember as a kid, my hands were always chapped. And as a matter of fact, when I got older and got fingerprints, they would never be able to get my fingerprints because they were so chapped holding, and I was stupid, maybe I didn't wear gloves, but I was holding those metal bars and it was cold. So you'd be cold sored and chapped and everything. So it kept on eroding, I guess, my fingers, and I couldn't even get fingerprints. So as I got older, it was not until the last probably about 15 years where I started to actually be able to get fingerprints. It was crazy.
Wow. So you said you spent most of your life here or
Yeah.
since you came here. And what was life like for you growing up outside of this work? Like, what was your friend life and social life like?
I thought it was the best. It's interesting because, I got to see the evolution and changes in the San Gabriel Valley. Many people don't realize that when I first came here, I actually lived in San Gabriel. And I went to school, and literally I was the only Asian boy. I mean, it was hard to believe, right, in San Gabriel Valley,
Yeah.
in San Gabriel.
Which school?
It was Wilson Elementary School.
Okay.
So it was in the northern part of San Gabriel. And at the time, because at home you only speak Chinese, right? Cantonese or Chichao in my dialect. So guess what? I didn't know any English going to school. And when I went there, I was like, man, this is a foreign country. There's people here that speak a different language. I didn't even know how to say how to go to the bathroom. It was a little challenging. I'm not going to lie. Because even though I came here when I was 4 or 5, by the time you go to school, 5, 6, whatever, you're just feeling like, man, I never left my home or go outside of that to, and so it was a different experience. But then now you look at it, right? You fast forward 40 plus years now, and the whole world's changed. This plaza's changed, and I saw the evolution of more and more Asians coming in, right? At the time, we had to go to Monterey Park to go to a supermarket or go to 1 or 2 restaurants, and now it's everywhere. It's like I saw the evolution and change of this community. I still remember down the street at the Focus Plaza, that used to be a drive-through theater, right?
Yeah.
And I used to drive by and couldn't afford to watch the movies, so I would sit on the side and just watch, and peek, at some of the movies and stuff like that. And so now it's completely an Asian plaza community, and now it's probably going through renos and changes because it's been there for so long. So it's been fascinating, to see this change, and honestly very proud because it's like, representing the Asian culture, representing my roots. I look at it very fondly, quite frankly.
You're speaking English now fluently. Was there a time when you grasped the language enough to feel comfortable? The language barrier is probably one of the most difficult to come here, but how did you eventually overcome that? Because obviously you speak English well now.
I was taking ESL, right? English as a second language, until my 3rd grade. So at that time, as any other foreigner or folks come into this country, you felt a little bit inadequate, right? You felt like you didn't know what the heck people are saying. They might be saying things about you, right? They're joking, laughing, probably not about you, but you probably think they are, right? You go through the whole processes of being somewhat maybe discriminated as well because they don't know who you are. They don't recognize the Chinese face, And so that was a process. And it even made you feel inadequacies, right? About, who you are, about even your intelligence. And I think that built a lot of character as far as I'm concerned. It gave me a lot of grit. It gave me a lot of drive and motivation to overcome and be better. I still remember very vividly, actually. This is very kind of more of a personal story. I don't probably share it too often, quite frankly. In my 3rd grade, I had my teacher, actually still remember her name. Hopefully she's still around, Mrs. Seifert. She came up to me and she said, Ken. And by the way, I don't even know, people call me Ken, but I was actually given that name by my kindergarten teacher because they couldn't pronounce my legal name. It's actually Con Long Tai, and she's like, I don't know how to pronounce this name. You look like a Ken. Can I call you Ken? So that's how I got my name, actually.
Con Long.
Con Long, it's translated in the Vietnamese form of my Chinese name. Yeah. So 3rd grade, she comes up to me. She goes, I think you're very bright. I think maybe I'm thinking to pull you out of ESL, and maybe I think you might even qualify. If we continue to work with you, maybe you didn't go into the honors English program. I was like, what? What are you talking about? I thought I was just, quite frankly, dumb because I didn't speak the language. I was always put in these, subclasses. And it was interesting. It was almost like a light bulb. Wow. So that was a very, honestly, very, very a memory that stuck with me. That, man, you can do something. You can rise from the desk, and you might even be able to do well in school and to have a good life.
It's amazing how powerful, like one person seeing a child in a positive new light, can really change the direction of their whole life,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I hear that story over and over again. Now it's, you go on to San Gabriel High School, and what was that experience like for you there? This is in the early 90s?
Yeah, early 90s. You got it down. And as a matter of fact, I have great memories of high school, actually,
What kind of student were you?
Typical Asian, straight A student.
Well, you were you have fulfilled the Asian prophecy. You're a doctor. You're successful. So there's I don't know how your siblings feel about you, but you've definitely done that in terms of what a lot of expectations are on Asians.
I'm sure it wasn't easy being the eldest and then having 2 younger siblings and kind of but you also felt you had to set the stage, right? You're one of the oldest, probably eventually going to be one of the few youngest people in your family to go to college and do all those things. So, there's a little bit of that expectation. I mean, some people maybe look at it as a burden, but as far as I'm concerned, that's what's expected. You know, you're here. You know, you had to work harder. You had to apply yourself more. You have to be the more responsible person to make sure that you're not just setting the stage for yourself. You're setting the stage for the rest of your family. You know, what did your parents or your grandparents or uncles qualify for other than maybe secondary type jobs? You know, in the case of my family, they went and did a little bit of small business and things like that. That was the extent, right? I mean, that would be, if they were able to be successful in that, that would be the American dream. And now I could take it a step further and be educated, right? And to learn and to maybe be able to compete with the rest.
These are quite mature thoughts. Were these your thoughts as a high school student, that you wanted to, you know, maintain this discipline for your family?
I have been told I've been pretty mature at a young age. Yeah. And I didn't think much of it. But now that you reflect back and you say it this way, yeah, maybe it was. I always felt I was a little bit more mature beyond my age from the standpoint of being very driven to do what I want to do. And it's interesting you said that, because now that I reflect back, when I talk back to some of my friends and folks like that, they always tell me, they go, yeah, you always told me you're going to do this and this and this. I was like, I did. You know, like, what are you talking about, you know? And so maybe you're right, but you don't think about that at that time. You know, you're just a kid still, right? You're just there to, you know, do the best you can, but also to have fun and live life and, you know, to just take it all in.
Did you have fun at that age?
I thought I did. I felt that it was a very memorable experience in high school. I felt that I really gave it all I got, and, you know, not just school-wise, but definitely in all different things in terms of being active in school, having fun, joining, you know, organizations, you know, taking on leadership. I think I tried to do as much as I could.
Did you have this idea of pharmacy at that age, or where did that come about? Or did you just want it to be successful at that age?
I just wanted to be successful. You know, and of course, as far as I'm concerned, I always loved science, you know, loved animals and things like that. So I figured that's the direction I'd go. You know, I mean, different from, I mean, some people probably thought it was because of the fact that, you know, like most Asian parents, they have this thought, you're going to be a lawyer, you're going to be a doctor, right? Actually, my parents had none of that. They actually wanted to actually, my dad wanted me to go into business, to be honest with you. And I was like, nah, that's not what I want, right? And so in terms of pharmacy, didn't even cross my mind. I didn't even know what the heck pharmacy was, to be very frank with you, other than the fact that I need to go there once in a while to get meds, right? Knew nothing about pharmacy. And so I think life is fair. You know, you kind of just go in, it's fate. You know, you kind of go in and you have opportunities to explore different things. And somehow I stumbled upon pharmacy, volunteered at a local pharmacy in this community in the San Gabriel Valley in Alhambra. Was just hoping to get experience, quite frankly, and work in the summers when I was at UCLA. And walked in there asking, hey, maybe I can get a job.
Which pharmacy was it?
Actually, it was an ABC pharmacy in Alhambra. Yeah,
ABC pharmacy?
Yeah, just down the street on Alhambra. And I was just actually introduced by a friend at the time, and I didn't know anybody in pharmacy. So thank God, I was really appreciative of the fact that I was willing to probably work for free, quite frankly, but I was offered a delivery job, you know, so you're delivering meds, coming in, doing odds and ends stuff, throwing out the trash, cleaning up, whatever, you know. I was excited. I was like, I got a job, you know, and I can come back in the summers, the weekends, you know, make some extra money, way better than the swap meet. So it was a step up, you know, and that's how I got introduced to pharmacy. I mean, that was just eye-opening. Because I was like, hey, this is something different. I'm in a community. People love us. They come in. They give us cakes. They talk to us about their kids, their dogs, obviously other things as well. And they, you know, it's just like you're such an impactful member of the community. They probably know you and know your team and the pharmacist better than their own family, kids. They probably see them more than their kids. And I was like, man, I want to do this. You know, maybe I could do something special, you know, in this profession. And not to mention, it's tailoring to a community that I knew very well, right? A lot of them were immigrants from all over the country in terms of, like, you know, Asian countries especially, right, in the San Gabriel Valley area. I was like, I can speak their language. I can talk to them. I can understand their culture. I know how my grandma is. I know how my dad is. I know I can take care of these guys, you know, and that's how it started.
That's so fascinating that you describe the experience of a pharmacy like that. I never would have imagined it being so social. I don't often go to a pharmacy, and when I do, it's not a small one, right? Or maybe it's just at Kaiser and it's like, it's a transaction thing. I just go there and I'm a number, they call my number and then they read me this thing and then I'm off. Like, so I'm so fascinated that your experience was that was so social and so involved with the community.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense that they're going there quite often, right? But then you're building, you saw it from the perspective that they have relationship with the community in this very impactful way.
Absolutely. And I think that's the difference between more of a box chain or, in the case of Kaiser, institutional type pharmacy setting versus an independent, right? Because independents are, quite frankly, made for that specific purpose, is to tailor to that community and be part of that community, right? So you do things that most box office people don't do. You memorize their names. You understand where they come from. You know family members. You know why they're here and culturally why they ask certain questions or they act certain ways or why they have certain stigmas about certain disease states and medicine that other places might not consider, right? These are the things that make it personal. They make you not just a healthcare provider, but someone that they can go to and depend on. Well, hey, at least that's the reason that I see, and that's the lens that I look through, and that's the lens I try to share with people that I work with, or with even family or friends, definitely with our patients and providers. It's a different experience. I think that's why we've obviously had some success, and myself, and I say I and we because it is a team. I never feel I do anything on my own. Success always comes with you being in a position to lead and to guide and to be impactful, right, in making change.
That lens of serving the community, serving the customer is a formula for success in nearly every business, right? Like if you can take care of your customer and you know them and you can speak to their needs, their specific needs and nuances, that's like a winning formula anywhere. You get inspiration working at this smaller pharmacy, and then you decide, okay, this is what I want to do. I want to make an impact on the community, and you immediately go to pursue pharmacy school at that point?
Well, at the time I was at undergrad at UCLA, so I decided, hey, maybe this is something I want to do. So of course I started shifting gears and start focusing on, hey, what I need to do to get into pharmacy school, right, and to pursue a career in pharmacy. So that's kind of how it started, right? And ultimately, I was fortunate enough to go to USC, which is another local school, so I could stay in this area with family and even live at home, right? Try to save money and whatnot. I mean, the journey started at the School of Pharmacy at USC.
I actually don't know what a pharmacist exactly does, because my experience with them has only been transactional, and I see them, right? So what does a pharmacist do?
Well, to be honest, nowadays pharmacists can do a lot of things, okay? I think most people look as a pharmacist as a guy in a white coat behind, a CVS, the counter and whatnot. But the reality is that's just a very small portion of what they do. I mean, really, they're a healthcare provider that coordinates care between all the different disciplines, because in today's world, healthcare, in many ways correlates or equates to taking medicine, right? And who's going to be the gatekeepers of that? Who are the people that are going to be coordinating with the doctors to ensure that you get the right meds? Who are the ones that are going to be coordinating with the insurances to make sure your meds are covered, right? Who are the ones that are going to be able to deliver and to ensure that the patients are going to accurately take those medications? And at each point, there's things that could happen that could go wrong, right? Doctors might have overlooked the fact that you might have had an allergy. They might have overlooked the fact that you have 5 or 6 different disease states, and they might conflict. And if you take all these different meds, there might be problems. They don't know what is covered and not covered by insurances. Pharmacists need to help and make that determination or assist them in that process. And then ultimately, who's going to help coordinate that care with the patients in terms of explaining that to the patient, right? Or even delivering it. Because, if you have grandparents or parents, they might not be very mobile, right? And they might not speak the language. I mean, this is the most diverse cultural, kind of hot pot you can find, right? Just in the Chinese dialect, there's like 15, 20 of them here, and so who's going to be able to navigate that? Who's going to be able to ultimately get them those meds if they're in a wheelchair or they're not able to walk very well because they're older, they're arthritic, or they have dementia and they don't know where they're going? So the pharmacist serves a very, I think, vital function in the healthcare ecosystem. And then our job is to make sure that we make sure everyone can get their meds and be healthy.
I remember I was some maybe CVS or something, and I forget who I was with at the time. And they're like, well, just ask the pharmacist. And I was like, what? I learned at that moment that there's this whole type of thinking that people often will go to a pharmacy as a doctor visit and then ask them questions about what they're experiencing. Like they're sick. They're actually going because maybe they don't want to go to the doctor, or they feel that this is a valuable resource as well. Do you find that that's happens a lot, or?
Actually, that happens every day. And the reason why I say that is because, doctors are busy, and there are colleagues who work great with them. But the reality is that under the current environment, they have to see a lot of patients every day. And you just don't have that much time to spend with you, right? And how often do you go? A lot of patients, they might go once a year, once every 6 months. But they go to the pharmacy on average, if you're a 60 and above, probably average 4 to 5 times a month. You know your pharmacists and their staff and team probably better than most of the doctors and their nurses. Guaranteed. And I think sometimes when someone is younger than yourself, you probably don't take a lot of meds. It's hard to kind of understand that thought process. But when you get older, and you're very dependent on medication, you're very dependent on, quite honestly, the need for that level of care. That's when you start understanding, geez, man, those pharmacies are like my lifeline. I take them like I eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner. If I don't, I might die. And that's the reality that we deal with. And so once you are in that frame of mind understanding, it changes your whole perception of the value of what that pharmacist or that pharmacy can provide. And I think that's where we make our impact. And I think it's just very hard, because when I talk to younger folks and people that are very healthy, and today, we're healthier longer and things like that. We're a lot more conscious about nutrition, health and all those things, right? And so you don't think about this until you get to that phase in your life. And I'd say usually above 60, 65, 70. And I don't know if you know, but by the time you get to the 80, 85 years old, which sounds a little old, but really it's not. These guys are active, doing all these things. You're probably averaging 15 to 20 medications.
What?
Okay. Oh, yeah. Once you look at it from that perspective, you're like, oh, my God. This is literally, when I say breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's what you're doing.
15 to 20 different medications?
Oh, absolutely.
I can only think of, let's say a diabetes medication, blood pressure, cholesterol, and then beyond that, I can't think of 12 more.
Well, the reason why is because, again, when we think of it, it's like, hey, there's, let's say, diabetes, right? You're going to easily be on 3 to 4 meds. If you have hypertension, easily another 2 to 3 meds. If you have cholesterol, another 2 to 3 meds. Not to mention vitamins, not to mention your eyes, not to mention potentially you have gout, potentially you have arthritic pain. Immediately you're up to 10, 15. That's assuming you have those basic disease states.
Dang.
Yeah. And so it really changes your perception. That's why I always say, hey, you guys, you have to put your idea and thoughts about the profession and pharmacy and medicine through the lens of someone who is really at that stage of their life where this is life and death. And I'm telling you, once you're past 60, 65, that's when it all comes together and you're like, man, I didn't think I need to take all this. After a certain while, you're like, man, if I don't take this, how long am I going to be around? Right? There's a reason why we live up to 90, 100, easy peasy, right? Because we're able to control a lot of that. We'd love to have the discipline to, do all this exercise or have great diet and great genetics. But that's not the reality of the world we live in.
There's a big jump from going to pharmacy school and where you are now. Did you work as a pharmacist? I'm sure you did first before opening all this. And what was that like?
I actually did a residency and then ultimately worked with that organization that's sponsored by residency and did a lot of corporate management and things like that, and worked in the community for about 2-3 years actually, post graduating pharmacy school and post residency.
Was that in a smaller?
It's in a chain environment, but I've always had experience obviously in the independent, so I always knew that world very well. My goal was always to eventually open my own pharmacy, and so in that time frame, I always tell people they call it per diem, which is you work moonlight and things like that. I probably worked at, I'd say 50 to 60 pharmacies, independents, right? And I would take on any odds and end jobs I could in addition to my 40 hours working as a manager at my main job, right? And it was really simple. I just wanted to learn. I wanted to see what it was like to not just practice medicine, be an entrepreneur, be someone who could make impact in the community, right? And for me, it was very specific. I come from an underserved background. And so that's a population I wanted to take care of. That's a population I wanted to serve. I knew that there was a need there. I knew that there was a need for the level of care I could provide, right? I also felt very confident that I could do something different, change community, make impact. And I knew that the best way to do that is to be in a position where you could be an entrepreneur and you can make decisions outside the confines of, maybe corporate red tape, right? Under chain setting, which is very similar, quite frankly, to the experience that you talked about earlier, right? Of coming in and making it very impersonal, making it very transactional. I've already experienced what it's like to make it personal, to make it something that you can relate to and really feel engaged with and really feel that could be meaningful and impactful in your life. And I wanted to expand that. I wanted to take it to another level.
Well, I want to get into that part of your story, but before that, we ask each guest to bring an item with them. What did you bring with you today?
I thought about this for a while, and so, I kind of go back to what I said at the beginning, which is I came here with nothing. So when you tell me about a lot of material things, they don't mean much to me. But memories do. So I did bring a picture of a memory that I thought was, I think, very well illustrates, and I'm not sure if you can see this here, but it very much illustrates a little bit about what I feel has impacted me. And this is actually a picture of the group of folks that I came with, the refugees, so to speak. A lot of them are family members and whatnot that came to this country. And this is a picture that we took at the refugee camp in Malaysia. And as you can see, there's not a lot of clothes, basic clothing, because that's all we had. We stayed there for about 8 months. At that time, I was only like 3-4 years old, I believe. And I was being carried, and this is actually a picture of me right there being carried of the young, I'm sorry, I moved out of your mic soon. At the time, it was my sister, Sally. She was 8 months, and I was about 3, maybe 4 years old. And so we lived in this camp at the beach. And no water, no electricity. So my parents had to go up to the mountains and grab water and come down like Gilligan's Island, right? And this is if you ask me something, this is my fondest memory because it reminds me of where I started. And it reminds me of the fact that who cares? You don't need anything. This is all you need. You need a picture like this to remind you of where you came from and where you need to go. Because you can't go, I don't think you can go further below this, where you're just like living, pretty, I remember my dad saying that the only processed food they had was when the U.S. came and dropped off canned foods. And then other than that, you're just going there to grab whatever you can grab from the local, trees and forests and fruits and stuff like that. So.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. For the listening audience, there's maybe like 20 people in that picture.
Yes. And those people, we are so close because we are constantly reminded of how we got here and how important it is that we are grateful for what we have today because they're all right now very successful, doing very well in all their respective pursuits in life. And what was 20 people are now hundreds of people because they were able to come to this country and then sponsor the rest of their families, brothers, siblings, and stuff to come here. And I'm very grateful because my grandfather and grandmother was one of the main sponsors of bringing all those people. They actually, at that time, you needed gold. They don't use currency, right? You needed gold. And they had enough gold to basically take one family member from each of our relative families, uncles, aunts, and etc. And they bought one person from each of those families to come here so that they could become the seeds to sponsor the rest of their families over. And that's how it started.
Wow, that's beautiful. What a story.
That's why it's meaningful, because it reminds me every day why I'm here.
Thank you for sharing that. Before we get on to the rest of your story, let's take a quick break and we'll be right back.
Sometimes, even the best of us can slip up. That's why the law offices of Scott Wormuth are here to pick you back up again.
And while they strive to get you the biggest compensation possible, oh my gosh.
Their main concern is your health and recovery. They work closely with doctors and insurance companies to make sure you get the proper medical treatment.
Initial consultations are free, so give them a call.
At the law offices of Scott Wormuth, we're with you all the way.
I'm Scott Wormuth. We've been fighting for your rights for more than 40 years.
All right, we're back with Ken. Ken, before the break, you were sharing that story from that picture. Now, what a powerful story that is. And thank you for bringing that in. When we come back from the break, we like to ask questions from this deck of cards called Icebreakers. And it's just a friendly way for the audience to get to know us a little bit better. So here we go. I'm going to answer as well. Who in your life inspires you to be better?
Well, believe it or not, the person that inspires me the most, and unfortunately she's not here with us anymore, was actually my grandmother. She was with me up until about 5 years ago, right? Actually, prior to COVID, right? And every day she's a living reminder to me of what's important, which is to make sure that you always remember your roots. You take care of family. She was kind of the, patriarch of the family. Once my grandfather passed away, everyone looked to her because she was I think I shared the story about, bringing people over. She was the original person with my grandfather that was willing to put up their own money to bring these folks over. And even to this day, they almost see her as their mother, even though technically she's not, right? But she inspires me even till this day to constantly, be selfless in your pursuits in terms of always looking to work harder, to think beyond yourself, and to understand that there's a greater calling in life in terms of achieving something.
Yeah, it sounds like she's quite a powerful person.
She is to me, for sure, and I'm sure to a lot of others as well who she's impacted in life.
Well, for me, it's without a doubt my wife. My wife is constantly pursuing growth and knowledge and sharing that with me, so I get to be the beneficiary of that. And one of the areas that I would say she's most passionate about is parenting. It's something that she pursues all the time, has pursued before being a parent. It shows up like, oh, I didn't know that, that was like important even to know. And I think it's like this mirror of parenting is so important. And the level I think that I approached it was, I'm just going to wing it, basically,
Like most of us.
Yeah. But she's so intentional about, actively pursuing the knowledge in every area and continuing to do that as they get older. It's just incredible.
Yeah, that does sound very amazing.
Yeah.
And I wish I was as intentional I am with parenting as your wife.
I think a lot of us are like that, right? Like I wrote a piece recently. I said, I think people study for their driver's test more than they do for parenting.
I think so. You're absolutely correct.
And I laugh at that, but it's not. It's kind of sad anyway. But anyway, let's go back to your story here. You knew you wanted to open your own, right? Yeah. And so you're gaining all this knowledge, you're gaining all this experience working at 50 plus places. And when did you finally know that you were ready to take that next step?
I always say you're never 100% ready for anything in life. Quite frankly, I was ready to do this on day one. But you also come to the realization that you don't have money. You come to the realization that you need to get some experience, exposure, right? I just figured until I get an opportunity, or quite frankly, maybe the right opportunity comes and gets presented to me, I'm just going to keep on doing it, right? Just keep on going there and trying different things and experiencing, right, until I get that opportunity. So when the opportunity was presented to me and I was able to jump on it, then it was roughly about, I think, 05, 06, I think. 05, actually. And then officially I opened in 2006. So my first independent pharmacy.
And what was that opportunity like, to take over a space or partner with someone? What did that look like?
To be frank with you, it was opening a brand new startup in a small little local area. I'm sure some of you know in the San Gabriel Valley, called El Monte. Okay. Why? Because I happened to go there and eat. I was going there to dine and eat something, and I was like, wait, there's a space here. And my mom was like, hey, you should check that out. Maybe there's an opportunity since you're looking to open and whatnot. I was like, man, this place is bad. It's a strip mall. There's nobody here. The anchor tenant is going out of business. Why would I want to open here? But like anything else, you don't know what you don't know. That's my mantra in life. And so I did some research. I put my training into gear. I've, produced a lot of business planning and things like that. And so I went and created a business plan, doing location analysis, going to all the physicians, talking to them, saying, hey, I'm going to open a pharmacy here. What do you think? Will you work with me? What do you need? How can I work? How can I collaborate to make sure I can take care of your patients and help you guys? And one thing led to another. And before I know it, I was like, man, there's an opportunity here. Nobody at the time was really focused on providing that level of care to that population, which at the point was a little bit of a mix. It's primarily Hispanic. However, that little plaza had some Chinese, had some, they're speaking Cantonese, Mandarin, Vietnamese a little bit. I was like, hey, I kind of can maybe tailor to all these populations, right? I was like, hey, let's do this. So I did the plan, and at the time, I still remember going to visit all these doctors, saying hi to them. I would try to schmooze them up a little bit, buy them some Starbucks, Jamba Juice, whatever. And it was about 6 months, and they're like, hey, we like you, Ken. Like, I'm going the first name basis on stuff. And when are you opening? And I was like, what do you mean? They're like, well, you've been talking to us for a long time. We want to send you business, want to support you, I was like, okay, it's coming. And that's when I actually went back and said, let me get this lease, because I was just quite honestly, posing and faking it till I make it, so to speak. Wow. And I was like, man, there's something here. These guys like me. They want to support me. They need this type of service. Got the lease. Very small little place, 750 square foot, I remember. And dinky little, suite within that plaza. The anchor tenant was literally going out of business. And that's how I started in 2000. Officially opened February 11th, 2006.
And you've grown substantially since then with multiple locations.
A little bit, yeah.
And was that also your desire to grow like that?
Well, if I tell you this is my initial desire, that'll be a lie. I mean, I as any young entrepreneur with no money, you're just hoping to get the first one going and hopefully achieve some level of success. Fortunately, it did very well, and I was able to immediately parlay that to open a few more locations, and that led to maybe about a little over 10 years ago, officially franchising the operation and formalizing it into our 96 Degrees Corporation, which is the 96 Pharmacy group. And when that happened, then that's when we really kind of took off. It really took another level of growth, because I was able to rinse and repeat and create a structure to build out this vision that I was eventually formulating and coming up with.
You've expanded 986 Pharmacy across multiple states, emphasizing personalized care. Could you share a story where this approach made a significant impact on a patient's life?
Well, there's a lot of stories. I mean, I'll just make a simple one. This is actually one that involves actually a friend of mine's. She's moved out to San Diego, and at the time she had asked me, hey, I'm just dying, man. My parents are, obviously, they live in this area, in San Gabriel Valley, and I have to come up every month to help them with their medications, coordinating, delivering. They're going to the pharmacy sometimes 4 or 5 times. They don't speak the language. They have trouble driving. It's killing me. And when I was like, hey, we do this all the time. Let me take care of this for you. He said, what do you mean? I said, well, let me know what you got. I'll work with them, and we'll take care of everything. Like, take care of everything? Yeah, we'll take care of everything. She didn't even know what that meant. So essentially, she did transfer meds over. We coordinated. We synced everything so that it's 1 time a month versus 4 or 5 times a month. We assigned a patient care representative to work with the parents, speaking their language, so she'd never have to translate anymore and be in between. Right? We delivered to the home, so they don't have to come anymore. It was on a monthly cycle, so it's easy. They knew exactly when they're going to get it. We coordinated with their doctors, so they never even have to call. Every time they're out of refills, we'll take care of it, right? And she literally didn't have to do it anymore. She was just like, I just come and have dim sum and hang out with my parents. We don't even talk about meds anymore. They care less to tell me about their meds because you guys took over. Wow. I was like, yeah. It impacted not just the parents' lives. It impacted her life and her kids' life, right? Because now she can spend time and do things that probably matter a little bit more, taking time to hang out and talk and laugh and do other things versus just dealing with their medical care. So I think that might be a small story maybe that illustrates what we've done. But maybe if you don't mind, I'll take a step back and maybe going back to what even 986 means. Of course, the San Gabriel Valley is very important to me. So, taking care of, folks that are underserved, right, that have come from similar backgrounds, immigrants to the country, which probably is the majority of the people now, or soon to be the majority of the country. That was important. So why do we come up with a number? People always think, oh, you're Asian, man. It's always some 8 or 9. I said, no, believe it or not, 98.6 is normal body temperature. Okay, that represents us keeping you healthy. right? If you're fevering, that's 100 plus, no bueno. If you're less than that, you're hypothermic, no good. We want you at the perfect temperature because that'll be your optimal. And in addition to that, I'm working with folks that speak all different languages. Now it's expanded way beyond just the Chinese or Asian community, right? They speak Chinese and all different dialects. They speak Vietnamese. We tailor to the Korean population. Japanese population, we have stores in J-Town, in K-Town. Hispanic, absolutely. Now Armenian, Russian. You can, if you name it, we probably take care of that population. So guess what is a common denominator amongst that? It's not the alphabet, it's numbers, right? Most people around the world can recognize numbers. Even your grandparents who don't speak English can probably say 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever. They can recognize 9, 8, 6, whatever that is. And so that, and of course, we're also, like I mentioned earlier, dealing with geriatric elderly patients. And one big problem is dementia. They can't remember much. But if you say ABC 1, 2, 3, guess what? Much easier for them to remember. Mm-hmm. So all these elements was what created 986 and has, I believe, made us achieve some level of success, is because always we think about our audience and the patients that we serve and whatever it's easiest and best for them.
Thanks for sharing that. The number and how you came up with that and what it represents is definitely representative of you and the meaning behind it all. I'm someone who doesn't like to do things just because. Like, everyone who knows me knows there's always some sort of meaning behind it. So I can really appreciate that story behind the numbers.
Yeah. I mean, it's so funny you say that. I'm very intentional. I don't do things for no reason. Once you get to a certain point in your life, you just realize that, you got to do it because there's something more to it. There's more deeper meaning to it. You just don't do it just because you just don't have the time, energy, and effort to do all these things, And so even with our name, I wanted to be very intentional in why we're here and what is our purpose.
Yeah, absolutely. Balancing roles as CEO, educator, and former president of the California Pharmacists Association is no small feat. How have these experiences shaped your vision for the future of pharmacy?
I think it's definitely given me a broader appreciation for the role that we play in society and in the healthcare arena, in the ecosystem, right? There's a lot of challenges right now. And, when you first start everything, you're like, I don't want to go through this, man. I don't want to be involved with all this stuff and do all this extra work. I could spend my time on the weekends with the kids and family and, go and hang out and eat all this great food in the San Gabriel Valley area. But then you start realizing that, wait a minute, everyone's doing that. But who else is doing all the work that's required to allow us to continue to do what we do and be able to enjoy the fruits of what it means to be a pharmacist and to open community pharmacies?
Yeah.
Right? And it's almost like it's slowly kind of evolved to a point where I felt like it's a calling, it's a duty. Someone's got to do it. And that someone might as well be you, because you can't go out there and tell people to do this and do all that without you, exemplifying and putting your foot forward, saying that, hey, you know what, I can't say that unless I at least try and do it. All this stuff kind of came almost organically. I love it. I enjoy it. I think that's what makes my life exciting. You get to do something different every day. I mean, what more can you ask for? People always ask me this, like, what is the opposite of depression, sadness, and, it's opposite of happiness and things, depression, whatever. I say it's not. It's boredom, right? You want to keep on getting stimulated, excited, challenged. And I've learned that these different challenges and things that I've been able to gratefully be involved with has kept it exciting.
Ken, what is the biggest misconception people have about small pharmacies, and how do you debunk that?
I don't know if it's a misconception, but I do think that when people hear that I have an independent pharmacy or independent pharmacy group, they always think, how do you compete? Right? How do you stay in business? You got CVS, you got Walgreens, you got all these other big box chains, the Kaisers of the world. For those that know me, my answer is always, how do they compete with me? How? And they're like, what are you talking about? You must be really full of it. I was like, no. If you work there, if you've experienced it, and then you compare your experience going through a 96 pharmacy or an independent pharmacy, it's just a different world. It's almost like you went from here to here. It's like eye-opening. And then I don't need to explain anymore. It's like, oh, now I get it, right? And I know that's not a great answer, or maybe addressing your question per se, but that's usually a common question I get. And I always say, just experience it once. And then you'll understand why people keep coming back, and why we're able to do what we do. It's really simple. We keep it basic. We look at the patient, we see what they need, and we take care of it. Simple as that.
Yeah, I imagine my experience that I described earlier is like that for so many people who
Absolutely.
go.
Absolutely.
Or literally, like there's a line and they're like, don't cross that line. Don't come up to me until I'm ready, right? Like there's this barrier and they feel so unapproachable. I don't get meds that often, but I see this, you know?
It's funny you say that. I'll share an experience actually with another, a chain. And this is because at the time I had an emergency and I had to go get some medication. It was like 10 at night or something like that. And my pharmacy closed already. And I was like, you know what, it's this close. Let me just go in there and get it done. I'll just pay cash, whatever, get it over with, right? So it was literally like an antibiotic or a Motrin, something simple. And of course, as a pharmacist, I know this is easy peasy, quick. I walked in there. Nobody was in there. Nobody. Just one pharmacist, okay, and myself. And I looked at them. I was like, hey, you know what, blah, blah, blah. And they're very kind of distant and say, okay, looked at it. And okay, blah, blah, blah. And, hey, can you sit there? And it'll be 30 minutes. And I looked around, like, there's nobody here. I could hear a pin drop. And they're just standing there. And they were not even busy. It's like 30 minutes to take 2 meds. And it was just me and him. And I was like, that's why. I was like, this is ridiculous. In my pharmacy, you would have been in and out in 5 minutes. I would have talked to you, greeted you, got to know who you are and why you're here and what we can do to get you out of here and, and get you home to rest because you probably had a rough night. And that explains it all.
I think you may have answered it, but this is my last question for you. If you could change one thing about the current healthcare system to better support patients, what would it be?
I honestly feel that, in today's world, there's a lot of red tape. I think there's a lot of people playing medicine versus the professionals, the doctors, pharmacists, the nurses, the PAs. I think that needs to go away. I think it needs to be a system where you let the people that know what they're doing do the job. Okay? This is not new. This is Asian countries, European countries. People do this. But here, there's so much middleman, whether you're a PBM or whatnot, that get in the way. They tell you what to do, what you can fill, what you can't fill. Right? They squeeze the dollars out from you and make sure that they make all the money. That needs to go away. I think once you get rid of all that red tape and you really keep it basic, with just patient, healthcare providers, letting them make the decisions that are required to ensure the patients get the best care, we'll be at a better place. We just will be. Make it simple. When you make things too complicated, you are not doing a service to the patients at all, the community at all.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. We're going to move on to the final segment of the show where we get to learn a little bit more about what you like in the San Gabriel Valley. All right. So this is what we call the SGV3, and we get to learn your 3 favorite. We used to say places or experiences, but now we're doing food. I don't know if we've done that. If I prepped you for that, are you prepared for 3 food places, or you just have 3 places in mind?
3 specific places, or just 3 types of things in terms of food?
So there was a transition, and I didn't log who I prepped for this, so I apologize. We used to do just any 3 places in the SGV, and then we've transitioned to your 3 favorite food places. But you may not have been a part of that. So if you only have your 3 places in mind, we're going to roll with that.
So this is actually interesting because I don't necessarily pick places that I think are very popular, or I think I pick places that are even necessarily the best tasting, even though there's a lot of great restaurants and things out here. I always pick things that bring me the most memories, right? They bring me back to a place where I feel that there's some nostalgia about it, whether it's through my childhood or through my upbringing or through something that I can relate to that makes me feel good,
Of course, because everything has meaning for you. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I try to do that. It's very intentional, like you said earlier. So I'm not going to put them in any particular order, but I will say this. I think one of the places that I always think of is, and actually just recently I just went there, is a noodle place. It's like a chichao noodle place, right? People think of Kim Ki, or think of Minyi down in Garvey or whatnot. And those places are great because I grew up eating that every morning for breakfast. Chu-chow noodle, or it's a chicken shredded noodle, things like that, and with the little fillet of fish and things like that. Very basic, very comfort food. When I feel sick or when I travel, I come home, I immediately want a bowl of that. Okay, and those are the things that bring me that nostalgia. Also, some of the rice cakes that they have there. It's like with the egg and things like that. I love that stuff. So that would be one place that I think that I would think of right at the top of my head.
And the names again?
It's called, I think, it's called Minyi, right? It's a noodle place, and there's a Kim Ki down in St. Gabriel as well, just down the street. Not fancy schmancy, you might not think it's that great, but it's just homey.
Is it the Chu-chow restaurants that start with Kim?
Yes, Kim Ki.
I mean, that is a thing, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
awesome.
Yes. Another thing I think of, and it's interesting, is actually the cafes. Because when I grew up in high school, we hang out in cafes, right? Garden Cafe, ABC Cafe at the time, and they open 24/7, and you can go there and grab a iced lemon tea, and all free refills, right? So I'll hang out there. They'll have I think at the time $5.99 steak and eggs. I'll eat that until I die because I was and so I still go there now, to kind of bring back some of the nostalgia and that memory, and it was just cool. You feel comfortable here. You can hang out there, and they'll just keep on refilling.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not sure if that's a good thing anymore, but still, those are the things. And of course, the last thing I would say is, some of the boba places here, right? This kind of defines some of the things that people think about when they think of the San Gabriel Valley. And I love tea, so Chicha is one of the newest one that I really like. But even a tea place like downstairs from your studio here, Oh My Pan, I go there a lot, just because I just like their very basic tea, whether it's passion fruit or guava or whatever, those are the three things that I think I would think of right away. And it's interesting because, being in business, I eat at very fancy restaurants and get a chance to wine and dine sometimes, and I enjoy all that. And if you ask me, on that level, obviously I love sushi. I love to go to omakase and do all those things. That's my favorite. I know that's your favorite as well. Absolutely, those are the things that, I love to eat. But when you really think about it, I always think, hey, on my last day, is that what I want to eat? And the answer is no. It's actually basic stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you for sharing those with us and with our audience. Doctor, it's been a pleasure going down this journey with you, your journey. If people want to get in touch with you, and I don't know if you want people to directly contact you, but what's the best way to get in touch with you?
Well, I mean, if it's through the company, obviously, we have our emails and stuff. It's pretty simple, info@96pharmacy.com, right? Website, etc. But I always feel that there's a responsibility and obligation and a duty, to be able to mentor and to help and to even just provide some level of guidance, whatever that is, inspiration to the next generation. I wouldn't be here without that. And so I always say, hey, you know what, I think I'm relatively accessible for the most part, just because I teach, and I like to spend a lot of time mentoring, even with my current, organization and team. It's all about that, inspiring, mentoring, teaching, guiding. Some of the people I work with today was through these really small meetings and small talks, and conversations that hopefully, bring some level of hope, inspiration to them to do whatever they want to do. And I always say that, I might sound like I love pharmacy, my passions are pharmacy, and it's true. But really, I just have a passion for achievement and doing something special to leave some type of legacy in your life, And I always say, do whatever you're passionate about. It doesn't even matter. Do whatever you're passionate about. And I tell my kids the same thing. I don't care. Just make sure that you love it. You give it all you got. You work your butt off, and you're hardworking. You always set a good example, and you'll be successful. I have no doubt. Don't do anything, just halfway or lackadaisically. That I hate.
Your primal question is definitely, what is my purpose? I don't know if you've ever come across that, but of the 7 primal questions, I can tell for certain that's yours. That's so, right. Doctor, thank you for spending this time with us, and I appreciate this conversation with you.
Thank you, Russell. Really appreciate it.
Well, there you go. Another show in the books. I hope you enjoyed that and got something from it. What I got from that was definitely an inspiring story. Visually, just see the picture and where they came from and to see the success that has been achieved really is a testament to the ability to really succeed here in the San Gabriel Valley. No matter what your background is, no matter what your upbringing, the possibilities here are incredible. So I hope you got that from this story. If you like this stuff, if you want to see more of our content, please subscribe. Don't forget to like and share, and you can check out the full catalog of episodes on our website, mysgv.net. And until next week, we'll see you then. Thank you for joining us on the MySGV podcast. Check out more of our content on our website, mysgv.net. This show was produced by Scott Warmoth, directed by Russell Mano, edited by Victoria Allers, and original music by Yone OG. If you'd like to join us next week as we capture and share more stories from our diverse community, feel welcome.
Nice mother. No, kind of mother.